Here's Brody Brazil.
Okay, I am ready to take you way back in time. Let's revisit the year 1999. Oh, yeah. Look at Brazil, a young Brazil. The mugshot there is a college freshman at San Jose State University. This was the tower card, as they called it, your ID card around campus, got you your meals, I believe, free transportation around Santa Clara County. I'm sure some other things. I barely even remember this, but I do remember it was a big deal to put this in my wallet and recognize that, yeah, I was now in college. But I'm not here to talk about the experience or this ID card. I just thought this was funny. This was right next to a couple transcripts of mine, college grades. And here in the fall semester of 1999, I took, 5 different courses, so 15 units, but one of them is COM 20, public speaking. Let's dig in a little bit closer on that. Did I really get a C+ in public speaking? And I laugh. I may sound bitter here, 20 years or so removed. It's not that. I just find it entertaining that I apparently struggled greatly with this course and maybe even transitioning into college. I mean, this is my first semester, just figuring things out. But a C+ in public speaking, which all these years later is how I make a living. It's how I support my family. This is what I have done for a job, a career, a profession, a passion. I speak publicly in person. I do it on television. I'm here on YouTube right now, but a C+ back then. And I'm also not saying right now that I'm still the best at it. But to think that's where I started at it, it's an interesting reminder. Now, I posted this on Twitter the other day. Andrew gave me a great response. I hope he doesn't mind that I reply to it here. He said, "Hey, Brody, I'm a public speaking instructor at Santa Clara University, and I love your work. Why do you think you got a C+? Would love to use it at a story in class, or maybe as a story in class." Well, Andrew, I appreciate you asking because it gives me the opportunity to follow up. And I didn't want to just leave it there like, hey, C+, I was bad at this and maybe I'm only now just a little bit better. But I do have some things that went through my mind that I want to consider here. Number one, I was 18 years old. And for all of you watching right now who are in college, who are getting graded on things, I hesitate to fully believe that at 18, you're peaking in life. Like you haven't developed in the brain or the body or the experiences, and you're just not good at something now that you very well could be good at later in life, either with practice or maturity or a combination of both. So I'm not too harsh on getting a C+ way back when because I'm a totally different person since then. I've lived those many years all over since then and a handful more. I'm 40, almost 41. So being 18 back then, what was I supposed to expect? Things have changed. The second thing is, I don't think I was a person who was inherently born to be a broadcaster. At 18 years old, I was very much interested in television, in production, behind the scenes type stuff, editing, using a camera, lighting, sound, all that stuff. I don't know that I was grown up and born and bred to be somebody in front of the camera. I think that's something I experienced, enjoyed, realized over time. So this might have been the initial stages of when I realized, hey, I think I want to steer broadcasting in this direction. It was not something that I had always been. I was not in any stage classes in high school, didn't do any plays or performances. I was not used to having an audience, quite honestly. The other two things here are kind of similar as it relates to this grade and my experience in that class. Number one, speaking in a classroom setting like we did, and I don't even remember who the instructor was, the professor, of this class. I really don't. I mean, if you lined up 10 people in a row, I couldn't even point out who gave me that C+ grade. But the way that person did it was, have people practice in class. You wrote a speech, you get up and you give your speech. Well, that is totally different than what it's like in real life when these aren't your classmates and it's not a small confined room. I mean, yes, sometimes you are speaking publicly to a class, but 20 something of your peers all at desks. I mean, it's never really that way in real life. So I think there is a difference in this simulated environment, speaking to a class versus speaking to an actual audience. And the other part about this is, for me, like I'm doing right now, speaking on camera is totally different than speaking to an audience. Now, I've learned the tricks of the trade both ways. Like right now, I'm pretending that lens is somebody. I'm talking to you directly. Even though it's a camera that I'm looking at in a small room and there's nobody here, I'm the only one in it and there's nothing behind it. I'm pretending that camera is a person. But on the flip side, it's a totally different experience when you are speaking to an audience. And what I say draws instant reaction from you and you and you over there. I can see in real time if this is working or not, or the reaction I'm getting or not, or my brain can get distracted as I see faces. So how do you handle that? I'm not here to dive into all that. I'm just saying there are tricks both ways. When you're speaking to nobody, but it's also a large audience watching electronically, or if you're speaking to an actual large audience and they can see you and there's no cameras, just because you're good at one doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be good at the other. Okay, so those are all the things that I wanted to put together. Hopefully that answers that question. But the grades go deeper than this, by the way. A couple years later, spring semester of 2002, RTVF, radio, television, and film. Do they even call it that anymore? RTVF 77, broadcast communications. Did I get a B+ in that? Yeah, I did, but first, wait, I skipped over this. Human Performance 24B. Is that intermediate bowling? I got a B- in bowling, but 3 years later, I kid you not, at Castro Village Bowl, I bowled a 267. I was a really good bowler. I was 200 every time, 220, maybe a couple 250s. 267 I bowled in 2005. So close to the elusive 300 game. But in 2002, I took bowling as a class in college. Yeah, well, that's the other part I buried. But yeah, B- in intermediate bowling. So it just goes to show you. Now let me get back to the other part here. Broadcast communication. B+. I'm not here to brag or show you my resume, but B+ back then? Come on. And you know what's amazing about this? I do remember the professor that gave me this grade. She was tremendous. She was an inspiration. She's also no longer with us. I won't mention her by name, but she was a tremendous part of my maturation and seeing things and learning things. And I really appreciate her. And so I'm kind of being sarcastic about the B+. But I also think what happened here was, and at this point, 2002, I was doing stuff on real television already, on broadcast television. I think what happened here was the case of somebody giving me the grade that kept the chip on my shoulder, that set me straight, that made me realize that I still needed to be hungry. I had to work hard in school just as hard as I worked in real life. So anyway, taking it back to all this grade stuff of San Jose State, late 90s, early 2000s, my overall point, the overarching reason I wanted to make this video is just to tell you, if you're in college right now and you're worried about your grades and you think that's going to define you and you think that's going to dictate opportunities or not, it's absolutely not necessarily the case. Don't get me wrong. I don't want you to go in here and tank. Go in, do what you have to do, work hard, learn as many things as you can, but more importantly, get as many experiences as you can. So to go along with whatever best grades you can, and I guarantee when it's all said and done, you will be set up for success.